You didn't go to high school? Having a child at 18, that's just the worst. The scornful words felt like they were scratching down my back. I was trying to settle into our new environment when suddenly, Victoria, the mother of Alyssa's friend, appeared. She was a Harvard graduate, and her domineering presence and smug smile made me feel small. But for Alyssa, who was dedicated to her studies, I couldn't let this haughty woman get the better of me. Listen to the story of how I, with my modest education, fought back. I'm Hannah, a 30-year-old housewife. We are a family of 3, my daughter Alyssa, who is starting middle school, my supportive husband James, and me. We moved because of James's job, just as Alyssa was about to start middle school. I was both excited and anxious about starting a new life in an unfamiliar place, but I was also ready to take up something new now that our child rearing was settling down. Then came the first day of school. James was busy with work, so Alyssa and I attended the entrance ceremony together. Alyssa seemed nervous about starting school in a new place, but soon enough, she regained her usual enthusiasm. She's naturally outgoing and doesn't have trouble making friends. Seeing her chat with her new classmates put me at ease. Watching Alyssa, I felt inspired to do my best in this new place as well. And then I met Victoria. After the entrance ceremony, groups of friends began to gather in the schoolyard. I was still standing alone, feeling a bit lost, when Alyssa came running over with a new friend. "Mom, this is Chelsea. She's going to be in the same class as me." "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too. Have you already become friends?" "Yeah, we talked about joining the volleyball club together, so we decided to join it." "That's great. Chelsea, it's nice to meet you. Looking forward to seeing you around." As we were talking, a woman approached us from the lively group nearby. She was dressed head to toe in designer clothes and carried an expensive handbag. "Chelsea." "Oh, Mom. Did you make a new friend?" "Yes, I think we're going to join the same club." "That's wonderful. And this must be her mom?" "Nice to meet you. I'm Victoria, Chelsea's mom." "I'm Hannah, Alyssa's mom. Nice to meet you." Victoria looked me over from head to toe, as if assessing me. "Are you originally from here? I don't think I saw you at the elementary school. You must be new around here." Feeling slightly conspicuous due to my unfamiliarity. "Yes, we just moved here. I'm not very familiar with the school events yet, so I'd appreciate any guidance you could offer," I replied. Victoria smiled. "We only have Chelsea, so I'm not that knowledgeable about middle school either. But don't worry, I have lots of friends with kids in middle school, so I can definitely help out." "Thank you, that would be very helpful." "Oh, I see someone I know over there. Just a moment." With that, Victoria brought over another friend. "This is Alyssa's mom. They just moved here." "Nice to meet you. I'm Alyssa's mom. Thank you for having us." As I introduced myself, Victoria turned to her friend and suggested, "Hey, why don't we have a dinner party sometime? Our kids have made new friends, so we should get to know each other too. Since our kids are in the same club, we'll be seeing each other often at events. Hannah, let's exchange contact information." Then I exchanged contact information with Victoria and the other friends. After returning home, Alyssa and I both reported to James. "Alyssa already made a friend in her class. Her name is Chelsea, and they are in the same club too. I got to know Chelsea's mom, Victoria, and we're going to have a dinner party with some other friends soon." James. "Both of you already made friends, that's great." Was happy. At this time, I never thought this dinner would lead to Victoria looking down on me. Later, Victoria took the lead in organizing the dinner. I think I can get off work on this day. She sent the date on WhatsApp. The other friends agreed to the date, and I was looking forward to that day. The venue was a restaurant near the school. Victoria arrived 30 minutes late, but the dinner started in a pleasant mood. Victoria, you left work for this today, right? Are you okay? Yeah, no problem at all. I already took care of most things. She was very confident. Impressive. People who are good at their jobs are different, aren't they? Hearing that, I casually asked, Victoria, what kind of work do you do? Then another friend said, Oh, you don't know? She's working as a sales representative at the most promising startup, MNR. She's been getting new contracts one after another. That's amazing. Oh, that company. It's nothing special. And she graduated from Harvard University. She's great at raising her child too, really admirable. She smiled at the compliments. Well, yeah. Graduating from a good university makes it easier to get a job. That's why I want my daughter to go to a good university too. Thinking about your child's job prospects already, Harvard graduates are different after all. But with Victoria's child, it should be fine, right? I mean, Victoria's husband also graduated from Harvard, right? Really an elite family, so enviable. If you all work hard from now, you can get your children into good universities too. Really? Yeah, first you need to be careful about their friends. What do you mean? You know, this is a sensitive time, right? If they make strange friends, they might stop studying. So, I want Chelsea to be careful about the friends she associates with. I made eye contact with Victoria as she said that. This could be bad, because I don't have an education like Victoria. Moreover, I didn't go to high school. But Victoria aimed her questions at me like a predator. By the way, I don't know much about you, Hannah. Do you work? Well, I'm thinking of getting a part-time job at a supermarket. Oh, part-time? So, you're a housewife? Yes, I've been busy with child-rearing until now. Then she looked at me intently. By the way, Hannah, you look quite young. I thought you looked young because you were working, but that's not the case. How old are you? I'm 30. What? 30? You're young. So, you gave birth at 18? Yes. Does that mean you graduated from high school? No. What? You didn't go to high school? The room fell silent. Most people are surprised when I say I didn't go to high school, so I was honestly used to such reactions. At that time, I never imagined that my lack of higher education would lead to me being ostracized. But Victoria changed her attitude noticeably when she found out my age. Oh, you didn't go to high school? That must have been tough. What? I mean, it must have been hard to get a job, right? For someone like me with a higher education, it's easy to find a job. Oh, is that why you're a housewife? No, that's not it. Right, with that education level, you could probably only get a part-time job at a supermarket. What? Is your husband the same age as you? You must have had a hard time. It must be tough for a couple with no education. She said it as if she was being sympathetic, but I could tell she was mocking me. No, my husband is older, and he did go to school. Oh, that's good. Even though it made me uncomfortable, saying something back could make the situation worse. I held back my urge to argue. After that exchange with Victoria, nobody talked to me, and the dinner ended with almost no conversation. That night, I told James about what happened at the dinner. I thought I made some friends, but now they might all avoid me too. Don't be so down. Haven't you had good friends before? Nowadays, Who discriminates based on education? Well, you'd understand if you were there. I don't know about the others, but Victoria was definitely looking down on me. Is she really that well educated? Yes, she graduated from Harvard and works at the same company as you. In sales, I heard. Do you know her? To someone like her, I must look inferior without an education. What are you talking about? I know how hard you always work, Hannah. Thank you. And I think decent people don't judge others based on education. Maybe I'll look into it. James muttered something like that. It's true, worrying about something that's over doesn't help. I decided not to worry too much about the dinner. But then one day, Alyssa told me something when she got home. Hey Mom, you're here? Yes, I am. Why? Chelsea said you guys were going to be late because of a dinner party, so I thought you might be out. What? Some of my friends from the club said the same thing. What? I checked WhatsApp just in case, but there were no messages since the last dinner. It seemed like I was the only one left out. Well, Alyssa gets along with her friends at school, so it's fine if I'm the only one left out. If they invite me again and I'm going to be looked down on like last time, I don't want to go. I even thought maybe I was lucky to be excluded. But then, I was looked down on by Victoria again. It was at the first parent-teacher meeting. I didn't want to see Victoria and the others, but I was curious about how Alyssa was doing at school, so I decided to go. When I entered the classroom, the other parents were there, and I greeted them, but they all seemed to avoid me. They were whispering and I could hear bits of their conversation. Isn't she the one who didn't go to high school and was a delinquent? Seems like it. Her husband was a delinquent too. What? A delinquent? And her husband too? The only correct part was that I didn't go to high school, but how did these rumors start spreading? Based on the context, it must have been Victoria who spread the rumors. I had braced myself for being avoided by the friends at the dinner party, but I never imagined the gossip would spread to parents I didn't even know. I wanted to correct the whispering parents, but they might not believe me if I suddenly approached them. I never thought it would come to this. As I let out a big sigh, Victoria and the dinner party members walked into the classroom together. They were conspicuously staying away from me. I thought it would be quickest to talk directly to the person who spread the rumor, so I approached her. Hi, Victoria. Hello. I wanted to talk to you. Even though I spoke to her, Victoria didn't look at me and instead turned to her friend beside her. By the way, what was today's lesson? She asked deliberately, ignoring me. As this was happening, the bell rang and class started. The lesson was in Spanish, and the teacher was having the students read aloud and asking about the meanings. While some students struggled to read or answer questions, Alyssa read fluently. The teacher praised her pronunciation, and Alyssa looked shy but pleased. Seeing this reassured me, but it seemed to provoke Victoria. After the class observation, Victoria stopped me. Hannah, does Alyssa study Spanish outside of school? No, not particularly. I'm surprised she can read so fluently. I didn't think she was good at studying. What? Because, if parents didn't graduate from high school, they can't teach Spanish. She's looking down on me again. Maybe she thinks she has to work hard because of her parents. What? Because, with your low education level, you must have struggled, right? She spoke to her friends, seeking their agreement. Seeing parents with low education, she probably doesn't want to end up the same way, so she's studying hard. Poor thing. What? Look at the time. I have to get to work. Sorry, being highly educated and working keeps me quite busy. Bye. With that, she walked away surrounded by her friends. In the end, I was labeled among the parents as having a low education and being delinquent when I was young. A few days later, I noticed something strange about Alyssa. She hadn't seemed herself for the past few days. "What's wrong? Is something bothering you?" Even though I asked. "No, I'm fine," she said, but she looked down and seemed troubled. I wondered if the label attached to me was affecting Alyssa. Around that time, Alyssa had a club match, and even though she wasn't participating, she said she would go to cheer. So, I discussed it with James, and we decided to go see how Alyssa was doing. During the preparation and exercises before the match, we saw that Alyssa was being left out by her classmates, standing alone. "What?" Alyssa had told us she was getting along well with Chelsea and other classmates in the club. But today, no one was by her side. In fact, they were keeping their distance from her. Alyssa was looking down but trying her best to cheer for the team. After the match, we found Alyssa and talked to her. "Recently, Chelsea and the others have been ignoring me," she said. "What?" "It seems her mom told them not to be friends with me." "When did it start?" "Around the time of the parent-teacher conference. No one would be friends with me in class or in the club." Alyssa had kept quiet about this to avoid worrying us. But hearing this, I felt a deep, burning anger rising from within me. It's one thing to look down on me, but dragging Alyssa into it is unforgivable. "I'm going to have a word with Victoria." James nodded firmly. I walked over to where Victoria was chatting in the bleachers. "Hey, I need to talk to you." I confronted her, but she wouldn't even look my way. So childish, I thought. "Weren't you taught to look at people when you're talking to them? I can't believe this from someone so elite." I spat out sarcastically. She turned to glare at me. "Don't act all high and mighty with your low education. I graduated from Harvard. I don't waste my time talking to idiots who can't even study. Just get out of here." Her hysterical shouting drew the attention of those around us. I tried to stay calm and choose my words carefully. "You've been spreading rumors, haven't you? Sure, I might not have the best education, but I'm not a delinquent. Even if you don't like me, dragging our kids into it is wrong, don't you think? If parents are poorly educated, it affects their children too. Having a child so young, your teenage years must have been pretty messed up." "What? That's why you got pregnant at 18, isn't it? What if your bad influence rubs off on my child?" "I did have my child at 18, but I took my responsibilities seriously. Stop judging people based on your assumptions. You're probably just making things up. Anyone can say whatever they want about their past. And what about you? Are you so perfect that you can judge others?" "What are you talking about?" "I graduated from Harvard and hold a high position in my job. Your husband probably has a low education and a poor job too, right?" Just as she screamed those words, "That's enough speculation," a familiar male voice interrupted. "What? Who are you?" "We've met before, haven't we?" It was James standing there. "Excuse me, but aren't you the Victoria who works part-time at our company?" "Boss? What are you doing here?" This made the crowd buzz even more. James continued. "I am Hannah's husband and Alyssa's dad." "What? The boss? So Hannah is the boss's wife?" Victoria stared at me, wide-eyed. "But Hannah has a low education, right? Did you deceive him? I heard the boss graduated from Harvard and studied abroad. I thought his wife must be a distinguished graduate from a renowned university. Hannah is remarkable." She gave up her education to support me. She even learned Spanish on her own to help us when we lived abroad. Yes, we had lived overseas, and both Alyssa and I could speak everyday Spanish. Wait, so Alyssa is good at Spanish too? I don't know if she's good at it, but she did spend time abroad. But Hannah works a part-time job. I said she wanted to try working since she's always been focused on raising kids, so I suggested she try a part-time job. Oh, I thought it was because she was struggling financially. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I didn't know. That's not the issue here. It's wrong for parents, who should be setting a good example, to teach their kids discrimination. I'm saying this as a fellow parent. James's stern words made Victoria fall silent. I asked what I was curious about. James, is Victoria really part-time? That's different from what I heard. I checked the employee data, and it's correct. She's a part-time administrative assistant supporting sales. James didn't say it loudly, but our friends who overheard our conversation started murmuring. What? Part-time? That's not what I heard. And admin work? I thought she was closing deals left and right. Were we lied to? Could the Harvard degree also be a lie? Such conversations filled the air, and feeling awkward, Victoria left in a hurry. Later, a friend I became close to told me that Victoria had been bragging about being successful in sales and even being in charge of training new hires. It seems she had exaggerated a lot. But because of this incident, my label changed from undereducated delinquent to the CEO's wife. Even those parents who had avoided me started talking to me normally, and interactions among parents became smoother. Alyssa also stopped being excluded at school. As for Victoria, she stopped showing off in front of other parents altogether. In fact, she stopped appearing at all. James found out that the Harvard degree was also a lie. She lost her credibility and stopped attending school-related events. She also left his company. The reason she quit was her own doing. There had been multiple complaints about her work attitude from her department, so the company didn't renew her contract. And it seems she got divorced. Chelsea, who reconciled with Alyssa, came over and told me. It turns out Alyssa and Chelsea had made up after all. Victoria and her husband were always fighting and had been living apart. Chelsea was taken in by her dad. Now, she works part-time at a supermarket in the neighboring town. It's hilarious that someone who looked down on others so much is now working part-time herself. Since then, I've been going to support Alyssa's club activities frequently and have become friends with other parents. Of course, no one cares about academic backgrounds. On the contrary, knowing James is a CEO seems to have increased their trust. And now, I'm carrying a new life inside me. Alyssa is thrilled to have a sibling. I'm so happy thinking about having another adorable child. Life's happiness isn't measured by education or career. I'll continue to live humbly, appreciating the everyday moments. After a refreshing 2-day getaway, my husband and I decided to head back home, but not before picking up some souvenirs for John and his mother, Mary. Instead of going straight home, I thought it would be nice to drop off the gifts at Mary's place first since it was on the way. I had already let John know we were stopping by, but as we pulled up to the house, an eerie stillness hung in the air. Despite the darkening sky, not a single light illuminated the windows, and an unsettling silence enveloped the property. Something doesn't feel right, I muttered, a sense of unease creeping over me. Yeah, I wonder what's going on. Watch your step, my daughter cautioned as we carefully navigated the snowy path to Mary's front door, mindful not to slip on any hidden patches of ice. As we entered the house, The atmosphere felt charged with a recent human presence, yet the dimly lit interior revealed a disarray of scattered belongings. As if someone had hastily fled the premises. "Mom, it's kinda creepy," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I know, honey. Do you want to wait outside?" I asked, but she shook her head, determined to stay by my side as we hesitantly ventured further into the house.
Hello! It's Emily! Is anybody home?
I called out, my voice echoing through the empty rooms, but no response came. We made our way to the bedroom where Mary would typically be resting, and as we pushed open the door, a biting chill greeted us, far colder than any indoor space should be. There, in the far corner of the room, lay Mary, her face ashen and her body wrapped tightly in a blanket.
"Oh my God! Mary!"
I gasped, rushing to her side and desperately trying to rouse her, but her skin was frighteningly cold to the touch. "I'm Emily. Your average housewife juggling the demands of raising a child and working a part-time job. My husband, John, is an office worker at a large corporation, often putting in long hours late into the night. Our daughter, Jessica, is a responsible high school student who always goes out of her way to help me, whether it's preparing her own lunch or assisting with household chores. Just down the street lives John's mother, Mary, a woman in her 70s. A few years ago, she fell ill and has been bedridden ever since, leaving me to care for her for the past 5 years. Balancing my part-time job with regular visits to Mary's house to provide care has been incredibly challenging. A responsibility that should have fallen on John's shoulders. But with his demanding work schedule and our comfortable financial situation, I never complained. Besides, from the moment I married John, Mary had always treated me with such kindness, as if we shared a special connection. When Jessica was born, she stepped in to offer guidance and support when I felt overwhelmed and unsure, even becoming a playmate for our little girl. For that, I am eternally grateful. So, I quietly continued to care for her, driven by a deep sense of obligation to repay her, even if only in some small way, for all that she had done for our family. Even so, I had hoped John would at least help out on his days off. "You're off today, right? I was wondering if you could help with Mary's care," I tentatively asked him. But his response was always the same. "Sorry, I can't. I'm really busy. I have to go into work today, even though it's a holiday. So please, take care of Mom for me." He never made any effort to assist with her care. To be fair, he was working almost non-stop, just as he said. With a schedule like that, you'd think he'd collapse from exhaustion, but John always came home late at night in high spirits. Seeing him like that, I figured he must really love his job. I didn't know the specifics of what he did, but I did receive a call from a woman named Sarah once. She said she was a colleague of my husband's, and when John heard about it, he rushed back to work even though he had just gotten home. If he was working that hard without complaint, I couldn't bring myself to demand that he please help with the caregiving. So, I never grumbled in front of my family and focused on providing devoted care while managing the household chores. "I'm so sorry about this. If I wasn't in this condition, I wouldn't be causing you so much trouble, Emily." Mary would apologize every time she saw me. "It's all right. We're family, aren't we? If it gets to be too much, please don't hesitate to let me know." "Oh, don't be silly. It's no trouble at all. Thank you, dear." I meant every word, and she seemed to be speaking from the heart as well. To avoid putting any extra strain on me, she would try to change positions on her own, doing what she could to make caregiving easier for me. As I was tending to Mary, the door to her house opened, and Jessica walked in. "Mom, I'll take over from here."
You should get some rest,
she said, immediately trying to help with the caregiving.
Now, hold on a minute. Don't you have entrance exams to study for? But Mom, you were feeling dizzy the other day. You really should take a break.
No matter what I said, Jessica wouldn't listen. She pushed me aside and started taking care of Mary. Now Jessica's involved too.
I'm so terribly sorry for all the trouble,
Mary said, looking even more apologetic.
Don't worry about it. Actually, I'd love to hear more stories about the old days.
When Jessica was little, John and I were so busy that Mary often looked after her. That's why, even now, Jessica adores her grandmother. So, in between studying for her exams, she actively helps out with the caregiving. Normally, I should be telling her to focus on her studies, but as Jessica pointed out, I had been feeling fatigued these past few days. I decided to gratefully accept my daughter's kindness.
All right, I'll take a short break. Let me know if anything comes up. Mary, I hope that's okay with you. Got it. I'll call you if we need anything.
I'm sorry about this. Thank you, Jessica. I headed to the bedroom and laid down. Almost immediately, I felt my consciousness drifting away.
Just 20 minutes. No, I'll rest for 30 minutes. Then, I'll switch with Jessica,
I thought to myself as I drifted off to sleep. In the end, I slept for nearly an hour, not just 30 minutes. This was my life now. My body was exhausted, but I never considered myself unhappy. Even though he didn't help out much, John was working really hard at his job, Jessica was a kind girl, and Mary was a wonderful person. I had no intention of complaining, and I didn't think this lifestyle would continue forever. Mary's health was visibly declining, and both Jessica and I could sense that she didn't have much time left. So, to ensure we had no regrets, I wanted to focus on her care for now. Then, one day, something surprising happened. When John came home, he said,
Emily, I got these from work,
and handed me some travel vouchers.
Oh my, what are these for? Did you do something good? My boss at work gave them to me. I guess it's his way of telling me to take a break sometimes. As if he doesn't know how busy I am. But that's great, isn't it? Let's go.
Yay! Let's go on a trip. Jessica chimed in, having overheard our conversation. When I said that, John's expression turned somber as he shook his head.
I can't. It's impossible for me to go. But it would be a waste to throw them away, so why don't you two go? You should take a break too, every once in a while.
I was taken aback when I heard that. He had never spoken such kind words to me before. Of course, I wanted to go on the trip, but I had some concerns. I'd love to, but
there's Mary's care to think about. I'll handle that. I really should be the one looking after Mom, anyway.
Jessica and I couldn't help but exchange glances. We were happy that John was offering to do this, but we were worried about leaving Mary's care to him when he wasn't very experienced. Jessica seemed to share my concerns and asked,
Dad, are you sure? You haven't done it much before.
John seemed irritated as he scoffed.
Don't underestimate me. I can handle something like this.
Putting on a brave front. Hey, maybe we should forget about the trip. It could be tough if something happens. I began to say.
You guys are so annoying.
John suddenly exploded in anger.
What's the deal? I'm trying to be nice here. Do you really have that little faith in me? You think I'm that unreliable? Well, do you? Spit it out.
I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. I stammered.
We didn't mean anything by it.
Jessica added, both of us cowering in the face of his outburst. Seeing us so frightened, John smiled, seemingly satisfied. That's what I thought. There's no need to worry. It's only for one night, anyway. It's not like I'm telling you to go on a trip around the world. When he put it that way, we couldn't argue.
Well, then.
Since we have the chance, why don't we go? Something about the way John was so adamant about us taking this trip didn't sit right with me. But not wanting to anger him further, we decided to go. The destination was a tourist spot not too far from here, and we were able to stay at a fairly nice hotel. I was worried about Mary, but John wasn't a child, so I figured he'd manage somehow. If anything happened, he'd contact us, and we had a way to get back quickly. Around that time, a cold wave had brought heavy snowfall, turning the entire landscape into a beautiful winter wonderland. Jessica seemed to be enjoying herself, but being the diligent girl she was, she had brought her study materials to the room. We walked through the snow-covered streets, enjoyed delicious meals, and had a wonderful time. After 2 days, feeling completely refreshed in both body and mind, we bought souvenirs for John and Mary and decided to head back. We could have gone straight home, but since Mary's house was closer, I thought I'd drop off her souvenir first. I had let John know in advance that we were heading to Mary's place, but when we arrived, there was no sign of anyone. It was already getting dark, but not a single light was on, and an eerie stillness hung in the air. Something seems off, I murmured uneasily. Yeah, I wonder what's going on. Watch your step, Jessica replied as we trudged through the snow, careful not to slip on any ice, and opened the front door to Mary's house. Inside, there was a lingering sense that someone had been there recently, but it was dark and objects were strewn across the floor. It looked as if someone had left in a hurry. Mom, it's kinda creepy, Jessica whispered. I know. Do you want to wait outside? However, Jessica refused, so the two of us cautiously entered the house. Hello! Are you here? It's Emily, I called out in a loud voice, but there was no response. We slowly made our way further inside and opened the door to the room where Mary would likely be sleeping. It was so cold, it hardly felt like we were indoors. Looking towards the back of the room, we saw Mary wrapped in a blanket, her face deathly pale. Oh my God! Mary! I gasped, rushing to her side and trying to rouse her, but her body was frighteningly cold. Still, she was breathing faintly and let out a groan in response to my calls. Jessica! Call an ambulance! I shouted to my daughter, who stood frozen in shock by the door. Glancing around the room, I noticed that, for some reason, the window was open. No wonder it was so cold. I quickly closed the window, turned on the heater, and wrapped the clothes I was wearing around Mary's body. Mary, it's going to be okay. Help is on the way, I reassured her. Just as I said those words, I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. What? They're here already? I marveled. No way, Jessica muttered in disbelief. As the sirens grew louder, they stopped right in front of Mary's house. Paramedics immediately entered through the front door. Paramedics. Is everyone all right? One of them called out. Hearing their voice, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Oh, thank goodness. We're in here. Please hurry, I shouted back. The paramedics quickly made their way to the room and began treating Mary. This looks like hypothermia. We need to transport her immediately. And you are? One of them asked, turning to me. I'm Emily, her daughter-in-law.
And this is my daughter, Jessica.
I explained. I see.
Well then, let's have your daughter Jessica accompany us.
Is that all right? The paramedic suggested, eyeing me suspiciously for some reason. A sense of unease began to creep over me.
That's fine, but why?
I asked, puzzled by his request.
I'll explain everything.
A new voice chimed in. A man in a suit entered the room and showed me his police badge.
The police? What's going on? We'll take care of the transport then. We'll leave the rest to you.
The paramedic said, turning to the officer.
Mom.
Jessica looked at me, her expression on the verge of tears. I had no idea what was happening, but I reminded myself to stay strong.
It's okay, Jessica. I'll be fine. You go and stay with Mary.
Jessica nodded and climbed into the ambulance, which headed off to the hospital.
Now, would you mind coming down to the station with me?
The officer asked. I was shocked to hear him mention the police station. I never thought I'd hear a line like that outside of a TV drama, especially when I couldn't recall doing anything wrong.
Wait a minute. Why is this happening?
We received a call from your husband, John. He said his wife was trying to kill his mother. And when we arrived, this is what we found.
Hearing his explanation, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. If, God forbid, something happened to Mary, would I be considered the culprit?
That's not true. There's no way. There must be some mistake. Please, investigate properly.
I pleaded desperately, but he simply sighed, looking annoyed.
That's why we need you to come down to the station,
he said. In the end, unable to resist, I found myself being led into a police car. I had lived an honest life up until now, and it never crossed my mind that I'd find myself in a situation like this. As I gazed out the window, overcome with despair, I saw the colorful reflections of traffic lights on the snow-covered ground. Suddenly, I caught sight of children playing in the snow and couldn't help but shed a tear. The winter landscape that I had enjoyed during our trip now felt incredibly cold and harsh. Thinking about what lay ahead, a sudden fear gripped me. I could picture myself being featured on the news.
The woman on your screen now is the suspect, Emily. Emily was arrested yesterday evening on suspicion of attempting to murder her bedridden mother-in-law.
If that happened to me, what would become of Jessica? As the daughter of a criminal, her chances of getting into college, let alone her entire future, would be ruined. But I was innocent. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my heart began to pound faster, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. I felt like I was losing my mind, but I desperately tried to keep myself together. If I did something rash now, it would be like admitting I was the culprit. If they investigated properly, they'd surely realize I was innocent in no time. So, for now, I had no choice but to cooperate. The police car swayed as it slowly made its way through the snowy streets. Finally arriving at the police station, I was immediately taken to an interrogation room.
Now, explain to me. What have you been doing up until now?
I was on a trip. Just my daughter and me. We got back this evening.
Is there anyone who can corroborate that?
We stayed at a hotel, so if you ask them, they should be able to confirm it.
I tried to maintain a composed demeanor. If I appeared too flustered, that alone might raise suspicions.
Did your husband usually take care of his mother?
I've been the one caring for her this whole time. My husband only looked after her these past 2 days.
I see. We'll look into that.
What about my husband? How is he doing?
Actually, his current whereabouts are unknown.
What? Why?
Hearing that John was missing, I grew anxious. What on earth could have happened to him?
We have a search underway, so I'm sure he'll turn up eventually.
So, what's going to happen to me?
Unfortunately, we'll need you to stay in a holding cell tonight.
You can't be serious. I haven't done anything.
That may be so, but we have to consider the worst-case scenario. You're still a suspect. If we release you, there's a chance you could destroy evidence.
I was overcome with despair. They were treating me like a full-fledged criminal. Was I going to be sent to prison without even being allowed to go home? In the end, I spent that night in a holding cell. Naturally, I wasn't permitted to contact anyone on the outside. Was Mary okay? What had become of Jessica? These thoughts consumed me, and I couldn't get a wink of sleep. The following day, the detective from before came to see me.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Your innocence has been proven, so you're free to go.
With those words, I was allowed to leave.
Thank goodness. Thank you so much.
We were able to confirm your story with the hotel you stayed at. Your daughter cooperated with us as well.
As we walked down the hallway, I chatted with him about various things.
So it was her that proved my innocence.
That's right. We were also able to confirm that you and your family had been providing care on a regular basis through interviews with a care manager and your neighbors.
I see. And what about my husband?
When I asked, he hesitated for a moment before simply saying,
"Well, we still haven't located him yet."
While it was clear that John had been at Mary's house, why he had left her unattended for such a long time remained a mystery. Stepping outside, I found Jessica and the female care manager waiting for me.
Jessica! Mom!
It had only been a day, but it felt like we hadn't seen each other in years.
I heard from the police. You worked so hard to prove my innocence.
Jessica nodded, tears welling up in her eyes.
I did. It was really tough. But it's okay now. And Grandma is going to be all right too. She won't be able to leave the hospital for a while, though.
Hearing that, I felt a profound sense of relief. As long as Mary was safe, that was all that mattered. We decided to head home for the time being. The care manager gave us a ride, and we finally arrived at our house. It seemed Jessica had already brought our luggage over from Mary's place. After saying goodbye to the care manager and sorting through our belongings, I was suddenly hit by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion.
Seriously, what is that man doing? At this rate, I don't even know why we went on this trip.
I'm exhausted too. Let's get some rest.
We each laid down, ready to drift off to sleep. It was already past 1 p.m. Having gotten no sleep the night before, I quickly grew drowsy. Just then, the doorbell rang. Startled, I got up and looked at the monitor to see the police officer from earlier standing there.
Sorry to bother you so suddenly.
I immediately unlocked the front door.
What is it?
Well, the thing is, we've received reports of a suspicious individual believed to be John. It seems he may be armed with a weapon.
Armed with a weapon. The moment I heard those words, a chill ran down my spine.
We're not entirely sure yet, but as a precaution, we'll be stationing officers around your house. Please refrain from going out unless absolutely necessary. And make sure to keep your doors locked tight.
With that, he closed the door. I immediately explained the situation to Jessica, and we checked all the locks in the house. Fortunately, nothing was left open, so we could breathe a small sigh of relief for now. However, not knowing when John might show up at the house, I was once again plunged into the depths of anxiety. Every little sound that I normally wouldn't have noticed, every faint voice from outside, set my body on edge. Naturally, there was no way we could sleep in this situation, so Jessica and I huddled close together, quietly passing the time. "Hey, Mom. This is all just a misunderstanding, right? Dad wouldn't do something like that, would he?"
Of course not. But we need to be careful.
I didn't want to believe that John would resort to violence either, but there was always the possibility, however slim. To begin with, I had no idea what John was trying to accomplish or why he had tried to pin the crime on me. I couldn't even begin to predict what he might do next. That's why we had to be cautious. If the time came, I would at least make sure to protect Jessica. I squeezed her hand, steeling my resolve. From that point on, time seemed to crawl by at an agonizingly slow pace. As evening gradually approached, my smartphone rang with a call from the police.
Hello?
John was found safe and sound at a hotel a short while ago. He's being questioned at the police station now, so you can rest easy.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank you so much.
I hung up after saying just that.
They found Dad?
It seems so. Now we can finally get some proper rest.
Feeling both relieved and utterly exhausted, we promptly fell asleep. We ended up sleeping straight through until around noon the following day. When I woke up, Jessica had already left for school, leaving only a note behind. Around midday, I received another call from the police, and the whole truth came to light. When they apprehended John at the hotel, he was apparently with Sarah, the woman I heard the name once before. I had been under the impression that she was merely John's colleague, but it turns out the two of them had been having an affair for quite some time. He had been lying about working on holidays to secretly meet up with her. While we were away on our trip, John had secretly brought Sarah over to Mary's house. The two of them had apparently been enjoying their night together when John made a huge mistake. In an effort to air out the room, he turned off the heat in Mary's room and even opened the window. However, he got so caught up in his time with Sarah that he completely forgot about it. Mary tried her best to close the window, but in her frail condition, there was nothing she could do but endure the cold. By the time John remembered, she was already cold to the touch, and he panicked, mistakenly thinking she had passed away. That's when he saw my text message saying I was coming to her house, and he decided to pin the crime on me. He called an ambulance, reported it to the police, and then hurriedly packed his bags and fled with Sarah. That's why the house was in disarray when we arrived at Mary's place, and why the ambulance showed up at just the right time. Of course, such a terrible plan was never going to work, and I was released soon after. John had been racking his brain, trying to find a way out of this predicament, but there was nothing he could do. Eventually, the police caught up with him, and the two lovebirds were arrested together. By the way, the report about a suspicious individual wielding a weapon turned out to be someone else entirely, and they didn't even have a weapon on them. It was a troubling situation, but I'm so glad we didn't end up in any real danger. However, after hearing the whole story, I was absolutely furious with John. It wasn't just about him pushing the caregiving responsibilities onto me or having an affair. Of course, those things were unforgivable too, but more than anything, I couldn't forgive him for putting Mary's life at risk. I couldn't bear the thought of continuing to live with a man who would treat his own mother so cruelly. So, I decided to hire a lawyer and go through with divorcing him. That said, since both John and Sarah were arrested for abandoning a dependent resulting in death, the divorce proceedings went smoothly. We finalized the divorce without issue, and I demanded a substantial sum in compensation from both of them. Sarah's parents apologized to us and shouldered the compensation payment from the divorce trial. As for John, in addition to the division of assets, I made sure he paid for Jessica's college expenses and the remaining child support. Their sentences were somewhat lighter since Mary managed to survive, but they still received suspended prison sentences. Naturally, they were fired from their jobs, and with their actions becoming public knowledge, they'll likely have to live a quiet life for the foreseeable future. As for John, not only Mary but his other relatives have also cut ties with him. There's no doubt he'll be spending the rest of his life in solitude. With that, everything was resolved, but so much had happened over the past few months that it was an incredibly busy time. Finally, Mary was cleared to leave the hospital, and the three of us started living together again.
I feel terrible for causing you so much trouble again. I guess I'm tougher than I look,
Mary said, still seeming hesitant about receiving care.
What are you talking about? You don't need to worry about that.
But Emily, you got divorced, didn't you? Doesn't that make me an outsider? You don't need to waste your time on someone like me.
That may be true, but the gratitude I feel for all the support you've given us over the years hasn't changed. We'll be family until the very end. Right, Jessica?
Yeah, of course we will. So, Grandma, you can lean on us whenever you need to.
Hearing our words, tears began to stream down her face.
Oh, thank you. I really am a lucky woman. I'm so glad I'm alive.
After that, our days passed peacefully, without any major incidents. Mary's condition stabilized, and Jessica successfully got into college, becoming a university student. I thought our happy life together would continue on like this forever, but that wasn't meant to be. A few years later, Mary's health deteriorated further, and finally, on a warm spring day, she passed away peacefully. Her face looked so serene that I couldn't help but wonder if I'd managed to repay even a little bit of the kindness she'd shown me. We held a funeral and were able to see her off without any issues. John attended the funeral as well, but we didn't speak. As long as he's alive and well somewhere, that's enough for me. As Jessica and I were going through Mary's belongings in her room, we found a will. It seems she had secretly written it, expressing her gratitude to us and leaving us all of her assets. Reading it, Jessica and I quietly shed tears. We were truly glad that we had been able to see her off properly. Mary may be gone now, but we've decided to live happily, for her sake as well as our own. Michael's baby turned 1 month old, and a celebration was planned. I was invited to Regina's parents' home.
How adorable! Just like an angel.
The moment I reached out to the baby's tiny fist, Regina shouted,
"Don't touch the baby if you're a stranger."
I withdrew my hand in surprise and protested. I'm Michael's mother. I'm the grandma of this child. So? Regina smiled mischievously. To me, you're a stranger. You're just someone unnecessary once I've gotten the congratulatory money. That's terrible.
You're stingy, just like your deli. It doesn't seem like we'll need anything from you in the future. So, this is where our relationship ends. Don't show your gloomy face around us again. We don't want your poverty rubbing off on our family.
I was momentarily taken aback, but quickly responded with a smile.
All right then.
Leaving me at the entrance, Regina went back inside. In my heart, I declared war. If that's the attitude you're going to take, I have my plans too. You'll regret this later. I am Margaret, a 55-year-old housewife. Shortly after my eldest son, Michael, started elementary school, I lost my husband. Determined to support Michael through college, I decided to work harder. I quit my part-time job and, using the money my husband had left, started a small delicatessen. Thanks to working tirelessly every day, the deli gradually became successful. And I was able to send Michael to college. When Michael was a child, I was too busy with daily life. We hardly ever had the luxury to go to theme parks or play in the park on weekends like other families. I felt guilty for not being able to give him more attention, fearing I was a failure as a parent. But Michael grew up to be a compassionate person, which relieved me. Michael, who landed a job at a big company, moved out to live on his own. Though he lived in the city, he would come to visit with a bright smile during long weekends. When he got used to his job, he called me one day saying, "There's someone I want you to meet," which excited me. However, I felt anxious as well as happy when Michael brought the young lady home. She was the daughter of the well-known Tucker Industries. I was nervous, thinking it was about making Michael a successor. But it turned out her cousin was set to take over and was already the vice president. Michael's wife, Regina, graduated from a university that only heiresses attend and is currently practicing to be a housewife at her parents' home. "Nice to meet you. Let's get along well, Margaret." The first time we met, she grabbed my hand and vigorously shook it. I could tell she was well-bred from her dining manners and behavior. But her unrestrained and flashy personality made me feel we wouldn't get along. But since Michael chose her, I wanted to get along well. I decided to make an effort to become closer. However, my feelings were quickly trampled upon after they got married. Regina was chatty and had a bright personality. That sounds nice, but her conversations revolved around neighborhood gossip, celebrity news, and speaking ill of acquaintances. The biggest issue was the timing of her visits. She would show up unannounced right when I got back from work and started preparing dinner. Naturally, I ended up inviting her to eat. I don't have any morning sickness at all. I can eat anything. Beer's okay too. You shouldn't drink alcohol if you're pregnant. Really? Is that so? Regina's surprised look made me anxious. When she told me she was pregnant, I was as happy as if it were my own news. But Regina seemed to lack awareness as a pregnant woman or had little prior knowledge. And despite claiming she could eat anything, her likes and dislikes were strong. She disliked fish for being too fishy and would only eat meat from certain brands. For dessert after dinner, she wanted expensive fruits like Japanese shine muscat grapes and muskmelons. Moreover, she had a habit of rating the meals after eating. 65 points. Not great. 93 points. Could use more spice. Today is 100 points. Amazing, you passed. Congratulations. I forced a smile at her full-faced grin. Regina, why do you rate every meal? She said with a broad smile. I'm doing you a favor, practicing. If you can't satisfy your daughter-in-law, your deli might as well shut down. I've been running it for 20 years in downtown, you know. My sarcasm didn't land. It only takes a moment to go under. I wouldn't want to take care of an unemployed Margaret. So, you better work hard. I'm only 55, yet she treats me like an old lady. Though she seems well-meaning, her constant superior attitude and offensive remarks are infuriating. Having these exchanges 4 or 5 times a week is exhausting. And using her pregnancy as an excuse, she won't even clear the table after eating. Lounging on the sofa with her phone instead. She wouldn't budge, so when I tried to relax with a beer and TV, she complained. Margaret, that's terrible. Drinking in front of me, is this harassment? Go to your room. I just want to enjoy a drink while watching TV dramas. Why don't you watch on your mobile phone? You're so inconsiderate. I want to watch on a big screen, not a tiny one. And why do I have to take this from my daughter-in-law? When my irritation reached its peak, Regina packs up Michael's share of dinner, smiles, and leaves. Exhausted, I bathe early and head to bed. Casually asking how they manage weekend dinners, she unabashedly says they use delivery, deli items, or ready meals.
I'm not good at housework, but I want Michael to eat delicious meals. It would really help if Margaret could prepare weekend dinners too.
I ignored her audacious request. I'm happy Regina comes to visit, but I'm also tired from work. Maybe just once a week would be better? When I couldn't take it anymore and complained to Michael over the phone, this was his response.
Regina's morning sickness is really bad, and she can't do anything at home. I'm swamped with overtime, so I can only help out with the chores on weekends. She's lying down all the time at your place, right?
Having Mom watch over Regina makes me feel relieved. It's her first pregnancy, so she's probably anxious. Please overlook her rudeness.
All right, I understand.
It seems Regina plays the role of a frail pregnant woman in front of Michael. I strongly wanted to show him how she lies on the sofa, laughing while watching videos. But doing so would disappoint kind-hearted Michael and make him feel guilty towards me. Regina is taking advantage of me, knowing I wouldn't do such a thing. That part again irritates me. Though I'm not fond of Regina, I'm looking forward to meeting my grandchild and want to maintain a good relationship with Michael as before. So, I decided not to meddle too much and warmly watch over Michael and his family. I shouldn't impose my opinions on naming the grandchild or insist on living together because he's the eldest son. Instead, when Regina asked, I helped with buying baby supplies, accompanied her to prenatal checkups, and even to church to pray, serving as a dedicated bag carrier. As a grandma, I was eager to help in any way possible. But Regina's attitude grew increasingly overbearing. Lately, she even orders large furniture to be delivered to our home, right in front of me.
Margaret, what do you think of this? It's expensive.
Shall I buy it for you? Offering to buy it was my downfall. After that, she started asking for expensive baby items one after another.
Imported items are more stylish, right? It would be really nice to have a matching set. Regina, why not rent items that are only used for a short period? There are affordable and durable domestic brands too.
I couldn't help but suggest, and Regina glared at me sharply.
Margaret, don't you want to give your grandchild the best?
There's no end to luxury. So, you just don't want to spend the money, huh? Oh, how dreadful. Dad or Mom would easily shell out $100,000. I thought, why not ask your dad or mom then? But it seems she has no intention of relying on her parents.
Margaret, you can't take your money to the grave. Let's spend it generously without being stingy.
Her words were so rude that I was at a loss for words. I felt my face heat up with anger, and I almost yelled back, "Mind your own business." No, that's not right. Causing a scene would put Michael in a difficult position, which would be unfair to him. Struggling to control my anger, I tried to speak calmly. Anyway, let's use rental services for things we can. Savings have their limits.
All right, I understand.
Regina reluctantly agreed, though she seemed dissatisfied. My relief was short-lived when Michael called me in the evening.
Regina was asking Mom for various baby items? Yes, well.
Sorry. I thought she was buying them with the money I've been giving her. I was surprised when I saw the sudden increase in high-brand baby clothes and toys. I could tell Michael was confused over the phone.
Did she make you spend a lot? Should I pay you back?
No, it's fine. I was planning to buy her some things anyway. Really sorry. Regina wanted a girl, and when we found out at the hospital, she got carried away. I thought it was more than just getting carried away, but I refrained from speaking ill of Regina and stopped arguing. It's nice that it's a girl as she wanted.
Being a lady, she just has a different sense of money from us. But I don't think she means any harm. I'll tell her not to burden Mom anymore.
Please do. After hanging up, I sighed. I understand the desire to gather cute baby items. Still, it would be common sense to show a little restraint. After that, Michael must have talked to her because Regina stopped asking for expensive baby items altogether. I wished she would stop coming altogether, but Regina kept showing up as if nothing happened. Lately, she seemed to have shifted her strategy to asking for small amounts of money. Thinking if not large sums, then small ones might work.
Look, I can't work because I'm pregnant, so I have no money. But I'm scared Michael will lose interest if I don't keep up appearances. It's okay for someone old like Margaret, but I'm young and want to be loved.
Of course, I had no intention of giving her a penny.
Why don't you ask Michael for more allowance? He'd listen, right?
I can't do that. It would sound like I'm blaming his salary. Regina pouted, snacking on some treats. Being a manager at a major company at 30, he earns more than most of his peers. But my dad earns more. Oh, sorry. The words "then ask your dad" almost slipped out, but I held back with all my might. Regina always carried a high-brand bag and wore well-tailored maternity wear. Wanting more despite getting a hefty allowance seemed too selfish. It's not that I think pregnant women shouldn't dress well or housewives should look shabby. But begging your mother-in-law for money is definitely wrong. Though I was upset, looking at Regina's swollen belly calmed my anger. Soon, I'll meet the baby. The thought of becoming a grandma soon tickles me. In that aspect, I'm thankful to Regina. When my sister-in-law, Chelsea, came over the weekend and I vented to her, she was outraged.
The worst daughter-in-law ever. She's taking advantage of you too much. Michael should speak up.
Do you think so? I smiled at Chelsea's indignation. But I think once the baby is born, her rude behavior towards me will get better.
It's not just maternity blues, it's her character. Don't get your hopes up.
Maybe. But I get along with Michael, and I don't want to ruin their marriage. Chelsea sighed in frustration.
Don't keep it all to yourself. I'm here to listen to your complaints anytime.
Thanks, Chelsea. I smiled at Chelsea. For now, let's just pray that the baby is born safely. Eventually, Regina gave birth without any issues. I wanted to meet the baby, but since she went straight to her parents' house after being discharged, I decided to wait until Regina was feeling better. Michael, stopping by Regina's parents' house after work, sends me pictures of the baby daily. I can only imagine how adorable the baby must be in person, and my anticipation grows. When the baby was about a month old, Michael contacted me. Regina wants to have a baby reveal party. A reveal party? Yeah, at her parents' house, inviting relatives. Can we invite our side too? Thomas and the others are on board. That sounds good. Why not invite the same group as we did for the wedding? I'll do that. Then, I'll start reaching out. My relatives all live in the same state. They love events, so they'd be happy to come. As expected, when I informed them of the date, they all wanted to come. On the day, I arrived a bit early with a gift for the baby, intending to greet Regina's parents first. I rang the doorbell of the grand house, surrounded by a high fence, and a mature woman's voice responded. The parents were often away for work, so a housekeeper was always there. The person who came to the door must have been her. As I reached the grand entrance along the slope, Regina, in a floral dress, greeted me at the foyer. holding the innocent baby in her arms. Dad and Mom got called into sudden work, so they're not back yet. Busy even on a Sunday. I greeted and was about to enter when Regina coldly asked, "The gift for the baby?"
"Oh, yes, here."
Handing the baby to the waiting housekeeper, Regina watched as I searched my bag. She snatched the envelope as I pulled it out and opened it right there. "Are we checking gifts in front of everyone?" Ignoring my surprise, Regina pulled out the contents and frowned in displeasure.
$1,000? That's too little. I thought that was the going rate. At least $50,000 should be in there.
Well, can't expect much from poor people. As Regina put the gift back into the envelope, the housekeeper stood behind her, holding the baby, who yawned adorably. Drawn by the baby's cuteness, I approached the housekeeper.
"How adorable, just like an angel."
As I reached out to the baby's tightly clenched little fist.
"Don't touch the baby if you're a stranger."
Startled by the sudden shout, I pulled my hand back. As the baby began to cry, Regina commanded the housekeeper,
"Take him to his room, now."
"Yes." After the housekeeper took the baby away, I protested to Regina.
"I am Michael's mother. I'm the grandma of this child."
"So?" Regina smirked mischievously. "To me, you're a stranger. You're just someone unnecessary once I've gotten the congratulatory money."
"That's terrible. You're stingy, just like your deli. It doesn't seem like we'll need anything from you in the future. So, this is where our relationship ends."
She fluttered her hand, shooing me away.
"Thanks for your efforts. You can go home now. Don't ever show me that gloomy face again. We don't want your poverty rubbing off on our family."
I was momentarily shocked, but quickly responded with a smile.
"All right then."
Leaving me at the entrance, Regina went back inside. Her words kept swirling in my head. This was the first time in my life I had been subjected to such a terrible humiliation. Why do I have to be spoken to like this by my daughter-in-law? Clenching my fists as if my bones would crush, I declared war in my heart. "If that's the attitude you're going to take, I have my plans too. You'll regret this later." When I opened the front door, my relatives were crossing the garden, coming my way.
"Huh? Margaret, are you leaving already?"
Regina, who came out to greet them, smiled at the puzzled relatives. "Margaret has some errands to run. Dinner is about to arrive. You could have stayed and eaten with us. She's in a hurry. Welcome, everyone. It seems Michael and his parents will be a little while longer. Please make yourselves comfortable in the meantime." Regina ushered the relatives inside, closed the front door, and immediately locked it. Regina, who is good at putting on a facade, is popular with our relatives. At my husband's anniversary memorial, she went around pouring drinks for the older men, introducing herself. Despite being beautiful and wealthy, her cheerful and friendly demeanor left a very good impression. So, no one doubted Regina's words this time. I decided to resort to my last option. I headed somewhere. 2 hours later, I pressed Regina's family's doorbell again. In front of the relatives, Regina, who reluctantly let me in, whispered to me irritably, "Why did you come back?" "I forgot something important."
"Huh? Oh, you brought the rest of the congratulatory money. Such a small amount was indeed embarrassing."
Passing by the smirking Regina, I proceeded down the hall filled with lively voices. Opening the door, I found a spacious dining room where both families were gathered around a huge table. Although Regina's parents and Michael were nowhere to be seen, the table was laden with appetizers, and the relatives were happily sharing beer and wine.
"Margaret, you came back. Come over here. we have bourbon and cocktails too. Why not have the housekeeper bring some?
I smiled at the beckoning relatives. Thank you, Trevor. But before that, I have something I'd like to reveal too.
Oh, what's that? A surprise gift?
To Regina's nonchalant question, I responded just as pleasantly.
Yes, a surprise. Now, everyone, please listen.
Clapping my hands, I silenced the chatter of the relatives and opened the voice recording app on my mobile phone, pressing play.
Don't touch the baby if you're a stranger.
Regina's shout echoed in the suddenly quiet room.
Is that Regina's voice?
The room buzzed with confusion.
Once you've given the congratulatory money, you're unnecessary. With your stingy delicatessen, we won't need anything from you in the future. So, this is where our relationship ends. Don't ever show that gloomy face again. We don't want your poverty rubbing off on our family.
No matter how many times I hear it, it's a terrible line. It seems I'm not the only one who thinks so, as the women in the family began to criticize Regina.
Even if a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law are traditionally at odds, this is too much. Margaret raised Michael alone while running the delicatessen, enduring so much. To belittle her like this is unforgivable. What's this? Just because her parents are wealthy, she acts so haughty. Such a nasty daughter-in-law.
Not just my relatives, but even Regina's family expressed their anger.
To say such things to your mother-in-law is unbelievable.
We're so sorry for our Regina. This is embarrassing for us too.
Being spoiled as a lady is one thing, but doesn't she know the difference between right and wrong? At her age, such lack of manners.
Faced with the cold stares of the relatives, Regina showed panic. Her cheeks twitching, she hurriedly tried to smooth things over.
Stop joking around, Margaret. Oh, I get it. You're jealous because Michael always defends me, so you made this up.
Regina covered her face with her hands and started to fake cry. I've tried so hard to get along with Margaret, and this is how she treats me? That's cruel. The women all had faces of disbelief. However, the men were easily deceived, looking confused and at each other.
Come on, that's too harsh. Yeah, ganging up on her. Poor thing, she started crying. Margaret, what's the meaning of this? Are you acting spitefully because Michael chose Regina? It's always the mother-in-law bullying the daughter-in-law, isn't it? Everyone knows Regina is a good girl. Don't pull such pranks, Margaret.
The men quickly sided with Regina, who must have been inwardly mocking them. Then the women exploded in anger.
Good girl? When we had a gathering at Margaret's, she refused to help in the kitchen, escaping to the dining area. Ignored calls for help, flirting with the men all the time. Right. When we were supposed to bring dishes for the meal, she lied about injuring her hand and brought store-bought items, then had the audacity to claim hers was the best.
Men are really weak against this type of girl. No eye for character. The dining room turned into a battleground of men versus women, mixing my relatives with Regina's. The once lively dining room was now filled with a tense atmosphere. As the housekeeper, flustered, brought in more beer, the doorbell rang. Chelsea entered the dining room, guided by the housekeeper. With a thick, bulging envelope of congratulatory money in her hand, catching Regina's eye. Chelsea, welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Here's the congratulatory money. Oh!
Chelsea deliberately let the envelope slip from her hand, scattering its contents across the table.
Oh dear, I forgot to seal it. Sorry about that. Huh? Who's that in the picture with Regina?
A relative picked up a photo, murmuring suspiciously. Regina turned around in shock. But before Regina could collect the photos, several relatives grabbed them, exclaiming in unison,
"Whoa! This looks like evidence of an affair."
It was a sight one would want to look away from. Photos captured Regina being hugged by an unknown man, kissing as she got out of a car, and entering a hotel together. As the relatives were shocked, Regina hurriedly tried to explain.
"It's not what it looks like. He's just an acquaintance. He loves physical affection. And the hotel, he said he felt sick, so I accompanied him inside."
Her excuses sounded incredibly feeble. Even the men who had defended Regina were now giving her cold looks. As if delivering the final blow, Chelsea turned on a voice recorder. And a conversation between Regina and the man played out.
"Can't wait for my child to be born."
It's a hassle if your wife finds out, so let's just say it's Michael's and mine, okay?
Shame, but we have no choice.
"He's so dumb, thinking you're just a friend."
Hilarious.
"We can get away with it since Michael and I have the same blood type from our college days."
What if the child looks just like you? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Their laughter ended the recording. Regina, pale-faced, turned to Chelsea.
"Why do you have this?" "Oh, didn't I mention? I run a private investigation firm."
Chelsea smiled slightly.
"Margaret asked me to look into you because of your reckless spending and suspicious behavior. And, as expected, it turned out to be an affair. I intended to keep this to myself to avoid ruining the marriage. But seeing no change in your attitude, Regina, I thought you deserved a punishment."
Regina glared at me with a venomous look.
"So, it was your doing."
As Regina lunged at me, Chelsea quickly grabbed her arm, stepping in between. Shaking off Chelsea's grip, Regina threatened in a low voice.
"Remember, keep quiet about this to Michael. It would be pitiful for the child to be abandoned by dad right after being born. Everyone agrees, right?"
Her self-serving logic was astounding, but Regina desperately sought agreement from the relatives.
"Michael loves children, and if he remains unaware, he'll adore this child. So, let's keep this a secret, okay?"
A deep, resonant voice froze everyone, including Regina and me. Looking towards the source, we saw Michael standing at the doorway. It seemed he had entered the house with Chelsea and had been eavesdropping from the hallway.
Michael."
Approaching Regina, Michael looked at her with disdain and angrily retorted.
"We used to go out for drinks, the four of us, including his wife, before Regina got pregnant. I never imagined you two were meeting alone afterwards. Laughing at me, both of you. I'm sorry. Please, don't talk about divorce."
Regina pleaded with puppy eyes, but Michael shouted back.
"Of course we're getting a divorce. Insulting not just me but also my mom, unforgivable."
Michael and Regina glared at each other for a while, but eventually, Regina was the first to back down.
"Fine, we can get a divorce. But I'm keeping custody of the child. I've always wanted a child."
Even at this point, she insisted as if she had done nothing wrong. What an audacious woman. The relatives watched the exchange between Regina and Michael, tense. With clasped hands and a dreamy expression, Regina began to speak.
"I think the child will look like me and be incredibly beautiful. Then I'll dress her in stylish clothes and take her everywhere. A young and beautiful me with a cute daughter. We could become famous as a beautiful mother-daughter duo. She's definitely going to be a model or actress someday. I'm so glad I had a daughter. Hey, children aren't accessories. Are you raising her just to show off?" That's pitiful for the child. Being a single mother is tough. Do you understand what it entails to work and raise a child?
At my words, Regina laughed in a high-pitched tone.
Who do you think I am? I'm the daughter of Tucker Industries. Unlike your delicatessen, I have endless money. My dad and mom will help, and with housekeepers and babysitters, I won't have to care for the child. I can live leisurely without working hard.
After boasting, she twisted her lips into a sneer.
Well, being from a single-parent family might be disadvantageous for school applications. So I plan to remarry someone suitable. Next time, not a company employee but a handsome CEO of an IT company. Such a man would let me have more freedom to play.
Seems like it, Mr. Tucker. Chelsea called out, and Regina's parents appeared from the back door. Shocked and speechless, Chelsea explained to us.
Actually, the Tuckers asked me to investigate Regina's behavior. They pretended to go to work today but stayed hidden, wanting to expose Regina's true nature. She had always worn a mask in front of her parents.
The Tucker couple stepped into the center of the room and bowed deeply to us. Everyone, we apologize for the disturbance Regina has caused. We don't know how to make it up to Michael and Margaret. With a pained expression, they looked at Regina. Regina, now as pale as paper, was trembling. Thomas, Regina's father, sighed deeply and lamented in a low voice. To betray Margaret like this. I'm ashamed of my own daughter.
But...
Regina suddenly looked up at her father. Moving closer with tearful eyes and a sweet tone, starting to make excuses.
I was bullied by Margaret. There's no proof, no images or recordings, but she said many mean things to me. It hurt, so I retaliated. Dad, you believe me, right?
As I was about to argue, Regina's mother, Selena, sharply said,
Lies! Margaret isn't like that.
Selena turned to me and declared,
As a fan of that shop, I can't accept what you've said. Take it back. What?
Regina, wide-eyed, listened as Thomas explained.
Selena and I are regulars at Margaret's Delicatessen. We often rely on it for business trips and dining with clients. For mom friends' home parties, we order delivery. That way, I only need to make desserts. The dishes with organic vegetables are famous for being healthy and delicious. I've known Margaret since before Michael's marriage, haven't I mentioned it before? Eh? Really?
Regina, sweating profusely. She had likely been tuning it out. Selena, with a look of disgust, turned to Regina and said,
We've overlooked your whims to some extent until now, but this time, your behavior towards Michael and Margaret is inexcusable.
Exactly.
Casually lying, demeaning others. After having an affair, you plan to raise another man's child as Michael's. That's the lowest of the low.
Thomas glared at Regina with icy eyes and firmly declared,
We're disowning you as of today. What? That's troubling. What am I supposed to do starting tomorrow?
Figure it out yourself. You're 30, aren't you? How long do you plan to depend on others? Why don't you remarry him? He's the real dad, right? That's impossible. He said he wouldn't leave his wife. Oh no. I don't want to work. Regina let out a pitiful cry.
Michael, I'm sorry. It was all my fault.
Regina started to deeply apologize at mine and Michael's feet.
Margaret, I'm sorry for everything. Please forgive me.
Mom, let's go home. We should get our congratulatory money back. There's no obligation to pay it to a complete stranger. Yes, let's do that. I'll take mine back too. Me too, I've lost my appetite. Michael took the envelope from the black tray, and the other relatives followed suit.
If it's not Michael's child, there's no need for a gift.
Right, it's ridiculous.
I thought it was a chance to make some pocket money by exploiting the baby.
As Regina crumbled to her knees, the relatives, without a glance in her direction, left the meal and the celebration came to a miserable end. The room was left with scattered dishes, half-drunk beverages, and meals, marking the desolate conclusion of the reveal party. Unwilling to work, Regina cried and refused the divorce but was persuaded by the Tuckers to reluctantly sign. The compensation for the divorce lawsuit was fronted by her parents. Afterward, Regina was kicked out of her home. She moved into an apartment with moving and initial costs borrowed from her parents, starting to live alone. The Tuckers decided they couldn't leave the baby with Regina and chose to raise it themselves. They also demanded child support and recognition from the baby's father, who complied. Regina, who had lived a life of leisure, must be struggling with her first part-time job. After all, she has to pay back her parents for the moving expenses and compensation, in addition to her living costs. Regina, now deprived of the luxury to dress fashionably or enjoy leisure activities, seems to be working desperately every day, her hair disheveled. Though Michael and I have cut ties with Regina, our relationship with the Tucker couple continues. After the reveal party, the parents came to me with an apology gift.
We were wrong in how we raised her. We're terribly sorry to both Michael and Margaret.
Their tearful apologies eased some of my unresolved anger. Thankfully, they continue to frequent the delicatessen, which has thrived on word of mouth and has more customers now than it did 10 years ago. I'm currently busy preparing for the opening of a second location. Michael, too, seems to have regained his spirits and is diligently working. Both of us are living busy yet fulfilling lives. Someday, if fate allows and Michael has his own child, we plan to shower that child with endless love. Being a husband's housekeeper, and if you defy, I'll divorce you. That's what Tyler, who stole my black card and went on a spending spree, threatened me with. Taking advantage of my being at work, he's off gallivanting on overseas vacations. I can't stand being mocked by such a ridiculous man. Sure. At my wit's end, I dismiss a call from Tyler and set out to enact a terrifying plan of revenge. My name is Harper. A former actress, I was a star who swept the nation. Having appeared in international dramas, I was once reported overseas as captivating men around the world. My popularity back then was extraordinary. My retirement from the entertainment world came about when I married Tyler, my then manager. He was my rock, skillfully supporting me as I tirelessly traveled the globe. He took care of everything, from my health to my personal life. Even after leaving showbiz, he's been a great help with the business I'm currently handling. Now, we collaborate and run a company related to apparel. I retired from the entertainment industry to marry him, and that was 10 years ago when I was 21. At the height of my fame, my retirement announcement had the media swarming my house daily. Even fanatical fans showed up. Every day, I received letters begging me not to quit, and my departure even caused a societal stir. Rumors and various media coverage abounded, but Tyler and I, oblivious to public opinion, married at the peak of our happiness. Everyone around me supported this decision. Just before retiring, I launched my own apparel brand, and now Tyler works there as an employee. I've entrusted him with the finances, while I, as a president, market our models. Though our life seems perfect, it's been far from it lately. Tyler's been acting strange. He comes home exhausted, sighing heavily, and gazes at me with an indescribable look. What's wrong, Tyler? You've been down lately. Trouble at work? I've always understood that he tends to internalize things. That's why, during our time together, I often try to gauge his mood. It seems he struggles to voice his worries and complaints on his own, always waiting for me to intuitively act. Sure, there are times when this feels bothersome, but I've never really resented it. After all, he has dealt with more troublesome things because of me. Gratitude, I suppose, has always outweighed any annoyance.
I'm tired of always being the sidekick, always following your orders.
His words, so unlike the expected work-related complaints, shook me.
What's this all of a sudden? You've never mentioned this before.
He often deliberately spoke in a way that hurt me. He starts saying these things when his work gets busy. Since he's always so firm at work, I guess he doesn't have a place to vent. I remember venting to him numerous times when I was an actress. So, I understand how he feels. But still, being confronted with such unexpected words, my voice trembled with disturbance. I've been holding back. You are busy, and I'm the one being taken care of, if you think about it. He earns decently, but after all, he's just an employee at my company. I'm the higher earner. I never thought income mattered in our marriage, so his words were a shock to me.
Even when you come home, it's all about work. You hardly pay any attention to me. When we go shopping together, you buy whatever you want without a second thought. How do you think I feel watching that? I'm actually quite patient. Why can't you be more considerate?
He, pouting like a spoiled child, looked at me with dissatisfaction. Honestly, his words irritated me. Our household mostly runs on my income. I told him he could do whatever he wanted with his salary. It's my way of thanking him for all the trouble he's gone through for me. There were times when we were poor, and he supported and provided for me. I thought I was repaying him for all his sacrifices, even until the day I retired, by letting him use his time as he pleased. It's heartbreaking to hear such ungrateful words from him. The clothes and accessories I buy during our shopping trips are from money I saved. If anything, I'm the one who's been holding back. These thoughts flash through my mind, and anger starts to build within me.
Harper, you're just too free. I want more time off, and I'd like to travel leisurely. The job at the company pays well but leaves no time. I joined your company specifically to ease your burden. Don't I deserve some gratitude? Instead of prioritizing your time, give me some time to rest too.
When I retired, he chose to continue in the entertainment industry as a manager, staying behind while I left. But when my business started taking off after we got married, Tyler changed his mind and wanted to be my support. If I join the company, you won't be lonely, right? I want to be there for you, Harper. Since I wanted to spend more time with him, I agreed to let him join our company. I never asked him to join, so why am I being treated like this? Isn't this life enough? Isn't he being too selfish? While I was pondering this, he made a proposal that felt like a final blow. Hey, my parents are turning 60 soon. Can I take some time off for their celebration? That's all I ask. No more demands from me, but I'll need 2 weeks off. I want to take them on an overseas trip. They've never been to Mexico, and I want to show them the delicious food and beautiful sights there. I was taken aback by his unexpected request and felt a sense of discomfort. A 2-week vacation could be easily taken by using paid leave. Our company is known for its easy vacation policies. There's no reason for such a confrontational approach unless something else is going on. Despite this, the fact that he would come to me directly with such a hostile attitude for negotiation struck me as odd. I thought so, but it was just a hunch. There was nothing concrete to prove this uneasy feeling. While suppressing my irritation, I calmly responded.
That's fine, but I can't join you this year. There's an important fashion show for our models and the Paris collection needs preparation. Can you ask if next year works? I'll adjust my schedule then.
As his wife, I can't miss my parents-in-law's 60th birthday celebration. But this year, our company has 2 major events, and I can't afford the time to travel. I suggested postponing, but he refused with a smile. That's fine. I'll just go with my family. I want to spend some time with them. As the accountant, my absence won't disrupt the work too much. His reference to family pained me, as if implying I'm an obstacle. So, how about it? I deserve some free time too, right? He has always been someone who speaks without malice, often impulsively. His honesty and straightforwardness are some of his good traits, but sometimes he speaks too hastily. No one is perfect, and I chose him as my partner, flaws included, but this way of speaking is just too much. Even if he doesn't intend it, why do I have to be spoken to like this? Doesn't he care about me at all? Harper? Are you listening to me? Despite this, I've always received great care from my parents-in-law. I can't often visit their house due to work, but when I do, they treat me like their own daughter, always praising my work. I'm so happy to have such a proud daughter. Samantha, my mother-in-law, expressed joy since I married, and Cody, my father-in-law, also celebrated our marriage with happiness. It's their birthday celebration, after all. I understand his desire to celebrate it this year. But how can I respond positively after being spoken to in such a manner? It's no problem. Take 1 or 2 weeks, whatever you prefer. Unable to bear his harsh words, I let my anger show. This must have been the turning point for Tyler. He stood up, irritated, and left the living room without a word. We have separate bedrooms due to our work schedules. From that day until his departure for the trip, we didn't see each other at all. Is that really true? Isn't Tyler being too harsh? Mia, my secretary, noticed something was off on the day Tyler left for his trip and pressed me for details. Mia is truly a talented individual and has been a support since I started running the company. As women, we often share the same opinions, and I trust her perhaps even more than Tyler. She's adept at sensing my moods and quick to assist when I'm down or about to make a mistake. I dote on Mia like family. She looks up to me like a sister, and I often consult with her. Her candid advice is always helpful. And now, noticing my unusual demeanor, she expressed her concern. I hesitated at first to tell her everything, but if I continued working like this, it could affect my performance. I decided to confide in her about everything that had happened up to today. She furrowed her brow in anger as I spoke. If I were his wife, I'd have spoken up firmly. I've always thought this, but Harper, you're too lenient with him. I understand you love him, but you shouldn't let yourself be taken for granted. Her straightforward reasoning felt like a blow to my heart. In a world where everyone hesitates to speak their mind to me, Shay's the only one who treats me as an equal. This refreshing and comforting feeling is precious to me. As one's position rises, people tend to become more humble and reserved. Having someone like her who confronts me head-on is truly invaluable.
You're right. What should I do?
Can't you call Tyler? Maybe try talking to him after work today? There's no need to be considerate about disturbing his trip. If this continues, it could lead to a divorce crisis. Do you understand?
Her sisterly advice left me with no response but to agree. Since work ended early that day, following her suggestion, I decided to call him immediately. He was in Mexico. The time difference wasn't significant, and he should be resting in his room after dinner. I had texted him earlier to let him know I needed to talk, so he should be expecting the call. Expecting no issues, I called, but he didn't answer.
Maybe he's still enjoying his time with everyone? I'll try calling again later.
I tried calling every 30 minutes, but still no answer. Worried, I contacted Samantha to inquire about Tyler's well-being.
Hello, Harper. Sorry we went on this trip just with our family. Cody and I told Tyler we'd prefer if you were with us, but he insisted.
Samantha used to be strict and education-focused, as Tyler once told me. But now, she's kind and always concerned about my busy life, offering comforting words.
No, I'm sorry I couldn't make it this year due to our company's busy schedule. Next year, I'll make time for a proper celebration.
Oh, don't worry about it. Just the fact that you're giving us such a wonderful trip is more than enough. Samantha's kind words with a smile made me feel uneasy.
A trip is a gift?
Hearing a word that was unfamiliar to me, I asked Samantha to clarify. She seemed surprised by my question. and explained the situation with a tone of shock.
Oh, isn't that right? I heard from him that this trip was fully funded by you since you couldn't join the trip.
Wait, what? I screamed out loud, completely unaware of this story. Samantha must have realized from my reaction that I knew nothing about it. She hurriedly continued her explanation, seemingly puzzled.
Isn't this trip arranged by you? He paid for everything using your credit card, so I thought it was a gift from you.
The trip included Samantha and Cody, of course, as well as my sister-in-law, Luna, and her husband, Tommy. 5 people in total. Even a conservative estimate for flight costs alone would be around $300 per person. With other expenses included, the total would easily surpass $1,500. Using such a significant amount of money without consultation was completely out of line. Especially since I've been managing our living expenses. He doesn't gamble, his salary should be entirely at his disposal. He should have more than enough income to cover such costs himself. Yet here we are. With him not answering my calls, my emotions were filling with anger. Samantha, sensing my distress, spoke with concern.
Harper, are you okay? We'll repay the full amount later. Tyler wanted to cover all the travel expenses, which felt odd to us. Cody and I were planning to visit you later, since we haven't seen you in a while.
This trip might have been orchestrated under unbelievable circumstances. Samantha thought, and with a tone of concern, she spoke to me considerately.
You are not at fault. Please use that money for your enjoyment, as it's also a celebration for you. I'll make sure Tyler takes care of the bill. Could you tell me more about how this trip was planned?
I wondered what he was up to, not answering my calls. This trip must have been meticulously planned months in advance. He was using me, capitalizing on my ignorance. Such thoughts began to emerge at that moment. Then, as I heard more from Samantha, I learned a shocking truth.
The trip was initially proposed by Luna and Tommy.
Incredibly, it wasn't Tyler who suggested this, but Luna and Tommy, who always nitpicked at me. Tommy, an executive at a rival company. Tommy, looking down on me for being a female CEO and considering our companies our rivals, always seemed displeased when we met. Luna, always full of pride, had a grip on Tyler even before our marriage, and he couldn't stand up to her. It seems they didn't like him showing me any affection. It seems they disliked the affection Tyler showed towards me. Even though they conveniently used him themselves, they couldn't stand him being even slightly nice to me. Both Luna and Tommy, always competitive, disliked me, and I tried to keep my distance from them. However, they targeted me and persuaded Tyler to plan this trip. It's likely that his aggressive confrontation with me that day was instigated by Luna and Tommy. They probably wanted him to create a situation where I would be the unwanted one, as they thought they couldn't enjoy themselves with me around. They chose a day when they could make me an outcast and brought Tyler along to provide the funds.
I'm so sorry, I didn't know anything about this. Tyler told us not to contact you directly because you were busy.
Samantha apologized. If Samantha, Cody, and I, unaware of the plan, had communicated, the plan would have been exposed, potentially straining my relationship with Tyler. To prevent this, Samantha and Cody were instructed to restrict their actions. To prevent any disruption of their plan, it was necessary to impose certain restrictions on Samantha and Cody beforehand. For them, unaware of how busy my work schedule was, Tyler's advice was taken as an absolute directive. They adhered strictly to his words, deciding to thank me only after they returned from the trip.
Harper, did you give Tyler a credit card or something? He was making payments with a black card I've never seen before.
What? Samantha's frantic behavior suggested that Cody was also listening and had a question for me. The moment Cody mentioned the black card, I hastily checked the contents of my safe. The black card he referred to was the important credit card used for company expenses. Only Tyler and I, who knew the safe's password, could access it. I had trusted him enough not to suspect him of stealing, but the credit card that should have been in the safe was missing, revealing that he had been secretly embezzling company funds. As the accountant, he could freely manipulate the records. He had exploited his position, misusing company funds for personal gain. Realizing this fact, my anger reached its peak, and I shared the story with Samantha and Cody. Both of them were shocked to learn this astonishing fact. They must have been dumbfounded. Falling silent as if they had lost their words, Samantha seemed to be panicking in a flustered manner.
What should we do? Are we complicit in this embezzlement?
We'll return to the US immediately with Tyler. Even though we didn't know, we're still complicit. We'll accept our punishment when we get back. Cody's words, full of responsibility, made me deny their need for punishment. It wasn't Samantha and Cody's fault. They were completely unaware of the scheme orchestrated by Luna, Tommy, and Tyler. Punishing them was out of the question for me.
Cody, that's unnecessary. You two were deceived by Tyler and knew nothing. You're not at fault. But I can't let them get away with this. Can you help me with something I'm planning?
Sure.
I've been ignoring what Tyler has been doing all this time, and that was my mistake. He's been making a fool of me, thinking an apology would suffice if he got caught. This isn't just a marital issue, it's a company issue. I need to teach him a lesson.
All right. We'll help with anything we can. With this, I laid out a revenge plan to them. I was surprised at my own capacity for such a scheme, but my affection for Tyler had clearly ended. Filled with hatred and anger, I revealed my terrifying plan, initially bewildering Samantha and Cody. However, realizing their responsibility as parents, they made a decision. They agreed to my plan, choosing to be my allies in this matter. During this discussion, Tyler unexpectedly called me. I ended the call with Samantha and Cody to answer his call.
What's up? Having a family trip and still wanting to talk about something important?
His sarcastic words only increased my irritation.
You took your time to call. What were you doing? Just having some drinks at a bar with Mom and the others.
This confirmed his lie. I had just been on the phone with Samantha and Cody, and there was no noisy bar in the background. Moreover, there was no reason for them to lie to me. Likely, Tyler was out drinking with Luna and Tommy. His words, so dismissive of our time and relationship, confirmed my feelings had completely cooled.
Oh, is that so? By the way, Tyler, you haven't been doing anything with the company's expenses, have you?
He was clearly startled by my sudden question.
What's this all of a sudden?
His tone, usually light and cheerful, turned serious, unlike anything I had heard from him before. Was this his true nature? His change in tone, seeing me as an adversary, prompted me to respond firmly.
I was just wondering, considering an audit is coming up soon for the company. You're suspecting me?
His defensive response to a simple question indicated his guilt. His poor reply made me laugh involuntarily.
What's the matter? I was just worried and asked, and now you think I'm suspecting you. Did you do something wrong?
Nothing like that.
But hey, when I get back home, the house isn't going to be a mess, is it?
Suddenly changing his demeanor and trying to switch the topic, his actions became even more suspicious. Why couldn't he realize that such behavior only made him more suspect? I was almost impressed by his lack of intelligence.
What do you think? I'm busy with work, too.
Stop it.
I hate the idea of coming back to a dirty house with bugs and stuff, you know? A wife is her husband's housekeeper, and if you defy, I'll divorce you. Even the executive director often threatens his wife with that. I might have to do the same.
You wouldn't like that, right? So, keep the house clean. I had never seen he and the executive director being friendly. What he was saying now was probably his true feelings. But, perhaps aware of his weaker position, he used someone else as a shield, making me sigh in exasperation at his patheticness.
Sure, I'll be careful.
There was no need to continue the conversation with him. He was completely underestimating me. Using company funds and embezzling. I could have him arrested for embezzlement. I won't show mercy, even to my husband. But that alone wouldn't satisfy me. After hanging up with him, I immediately made a call to a certain place. The next day, As I was busy preparing for a fashion show, I received several calls. Of course, it was Tyler. I noticed his calls late at night, while I was out for a certain reason. Fortunately, Mia was with me, so she drove while I answered his call.
You're late. What have you been doing?
His rough tone, heard through the speakerphone, surprised both Mia and me.
Just work, what else? Harper, did you do something yesterday?
Something?
What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Tell me the truth. What did you do?
Tyler was in total panic, and in the background, I could hear several Mexican men confronting Luna, Tommy, and Tyler.
It sounds noisy. What's happening? It's nothing.
He suddenly became flustered after shouting. Realizing he'd be at a disadvantage if he spoke out, he struggled to find the right words. His behavior was so bizarre that I decided to explain the situation to him. It was time for him to taste true despair. Too bad.
You were supposed to be enjoying a lavish time in Mexico, but now you've woken up from that dream overnight, right? But it's your own fault for misusing someone else's money. Did you do something, Harper?
While he was reacting strangely, I explained what I had done the previous day. I contacted the president of the credit card company I had a contract with. Despite the late hour, the president, always grateful for my patronage, agreed to suspend the company's credit card early in the morning. If a credit card is misused, the company doesn't have to pay the shop, so the shop bears the full loss. However, this time, since the payment was supposed to be made in full at the hotel checkout, Tyler, unable to use the stopped card, was now stranded and being questioned at the hotel reception.
Tyler, Mom and Dad have already checked out. The cab they reserved took them away, so there's no one to pick you up.
Luna, cornered, desperately asked Tyler what to do. Hearing this, he became even more panicked and turned his anger towards me.
Doing such a thing, you think you can get away with it? Are you okay with us getting divorced?
Please do.
In fact, I prefer a divorce from a husband who embezzles company funds. I've already spoken to the lawyer, and will proceed with the divorce proceedings.
He, flustered by my unshaken demeanor, realized his mistake.
I've been silent about everything you have done so far. There was truth in him supporting my work, and I was grateful to him. But I've reached my limit.
Realizing his dire situation, he pathetically acknowledged my fury. The reception, relentlessly demanding payment, showed no mercy. He, relying on an interpreter, couldn't speak Spanish at all. Listening to this, I had an idea and suggested to him to pass the phone to them.
Nobody there speaks Spanish, right? Can you let me talk to them?
I'll explain for you.
Will you help me? I'm glad to switch.
Thinking that I had changed my mind after his apparent regret, he quickly handed his mobile phone to the hotel reception. I explained the situation to the reception in Spanish, and they quickly understood. To ease any concerns, I got their contact information, which Mia noted down. They happily agreed to cooperate with my deal. After talking to me, they returned the phone to Tyler.
What happened? Did you sort it out?
Yes, I took care of it.
Now it's up to you guys to manage.
Really? You're a lifesaver, Harper.
I love you.
With that, he was called back to the reception. Unaware of our conversation, he ended the call and followed them. Are you okay? This might turn into a big problem.
Just perfect. It's the right kind of hell for them.
An hour later, as expected, Tyler called many times. When I answered, he was in a pathetic state.
What's going on, Harper? What is this place?
He showed me a video call of a slum street. Tyler, Luna, and Tommy had been taken to the slums and stripped of all their belongings. The fact that they ended up in one of Mexico's most dangerous slums was unexpected. The receptionist had told me. I was a fan of Harper. I'll arrange the punishment, leave it to me. But I never expected it would be this place. I laughed out loud at the location, far beyond my expectations. Lucky you.
Still alive in the most dangerous place in Mexico. It's a miracle you're alive. That's impossible. Wait, Harper. What do you mean? Explain, and come to help us right now.
From the video call, it was clear they could hear my voice. The homeless people surrounding them were causing a commotion.
You were causing trouble for Harper. It's your fault. You three should reflect.
Samantha and Cody appeared on the call, surprising Luna and the others.
Mom and Dad, what are you doing?
Harper's acquaintance flew us back on a private jet to the US, and Harper came to pick us up. We knew you were trying to trap Harper. We asked her to do whatever she wanted. At that moment, the homeless people behind them started questioning Luna, Tyler, and Tommy. The slum residents were merciless, even to women, if they seemed to have anything valuable. As they argued on the video call in the dangerous streets, it was natural they'd become prey. I spoke to the locals in the background, smiling.
These men have been misusing my credit card and have been terrible to me every night. Do whatever you like with them. I want them to see hell.
They agreed, saying, "Leave it to us." The call ended abruptly, likely because the phone was taken. Since then, they have been living in fear in the slums, treated poorly by the locals and unable to afford a return to the US. They were effectively trapped abroad. I confirmed the events with the hotel reception afterward. Their acquaintance, apparently a boss in the slums, agreed to take care of Tyler and the others in exchange for a treat of fine liquor. The agreement was made on the condition that they'd be safe from life-threatening situations. In return, I agreed to sing at their hotel, the only song I released during my active years.
The song you released is still my treasure. Your thanks can be in the form of a song, so come stay at our hotel. I'll tell the manager to give you the best service.
With this, I successfully took my revenge on Tyler and the others. Since then, I've managed to divorce Tyler with the help of the men from the hotel. I feel relieved and am spending enjoyable times with Samantha and Cody. Luna and Tommy were fired for their unauthorized absence from work. Without their phones, they couldn't contact anyone. Samantha and Cody explained the situation well, so it didn't become a police matter, and no one else cared about them. Thus, my ties with Tyler were completely severed. Since then, I've been focusing on my work and enjoying life. Occasionally, I call the hotel reception to check on Tyler and the others, who are still living in a hellish environment. I feel no pity for them, despite the severity of their punishment. I only asked to spare their lives and now enjoy my own life to the fullest.
You're the low-educated, incompetent employee which Mom told me about, huh?
Suddenly, I was tasked with conducting an interview. My interviewee was Catherine, a daughter of a director who was scheming nepotism. However, she started laughing loudly, crossed her legs, and began to look down on me, bringing the interview to the verge of collapse. I couldn't believe the company was considering hiring someone like her. Later, when the director heard my report, he began to tremble. I'm 32 years old. After graduating from college and switching jobs once, I'm now working steadily at my current company. I usually work in the HR, and my boss, Jacqueline, the director, is someone I deeply respect. Because she is always cheerful and highly trusted by everyone around her. Though I respected the director, I often felt something was off. But I couldn't figure out what it was and continued to work with her for 5 years. Finally, I grasped what that feeling was about. It became clear when the director suddenly had to step away, and I was asked to interview her daughter as a stand-in. This led to an unbelievable fate for both the director and her daughter. Sorry to ask, but could you interview my daughter? Don't feel pressured just because she's my daughter, just treat her like usual. Understood. Leave it to me. She must be excellent, being your daughter. Thanks. I have to go now. Good luck. One day, I was suddenly asked to conduct an interview. The director had an unfortunate schedule change with a client and had to rush to a meeting room with the chief. But today was also the day her daughter was coming for an interview, so she asked me and my colleague Nancy to take over. Since we had no particular plans, so we happily agreed and saw the director off. Since the interview wasn't until the afternoon, we continued our usual work until then. I thought it would just be a formal interview, considering she was the director's daughter. After joining the company, the director's daughter was going to work as my colleague. Apparently, someone in our department was transferring next year, and the director recommended her daughter to fill the vacancy. While I was looking forward to it and working, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around to find Isabel, the chairman's daughter, standing there. Isabel is quiet but a vital member who always works earnestly. I only found out Isabel was the chairman's daughter recently, during the first drinking party in a long time where the director shared the story. Isabel wasn't at that gathering, but later, when I checked in with her, it turned out to be true. It's a fact known to those in positions above the director, but not to the general employees. Isabel kept it hidden because she didn't want everyone to know. After hearing this, I apologized. Isabel smiled, forgave me, and after some small talk, we became a bit closer.
About this document.
Do you have questions? I'll help if I can.
Thank you.
Isabel smiled gently. The reason why I could see such a smile because we had talked and gotten a little closer. Until then, Isabel had been someone who worked methodically, seldom interacting with other employees. Since she didn't exhibit any notable problem behaviors, no one in the department really said much. Now that I had talked to her and become a bit friendlier, I started approaching her, but until then, since there was no interaction outside of work, I hadn't paid her much attention. I'm sure most others felt the same way. Besides, Isabel herself probably liked being alone. At that time, that was all I understood about her. But later, I came to know that Isabel was dealing with some troubles. When I heard about them, I was shocked and couldn't believe it.
Hi, I'm Catherine. Thank you for having me today.
The afternoon passed, and it was time for the interview. As the interviewer, I was waiting in the interview room with my colleague for the director's daughter. She arrived on time, as scheduled. Her educational background was impeccable, with active participation in volunteer work and cultural exchanges. She had also studied abroad, and her resume mentioned proficiency in German. Please, take a seat. I said that, guiding Catherine to the chair in front of me. Catherine had frozen for a bit after entering, then looked uneasy, as if she wanted to ask something. She seemed confused not to see her mother among the interviewers. I explained that the director had urgent business and that my colleague and I had taken over the interview. The director isn't here, but please relax and answer the questions. They aren't too difficult. When I said this, Catherine furrowed her brows and looked at me. She sat down, her face tensing with nervousness. I kept my tone calm and asked the questions formally. However, the interview didn't go as I expected. Catherine gave careless responses and didn't answer even simple questions. I didn't show it, but I was very surprised inside. I had checked her resume and imagined her to be a competent person, so the contrast was startling.
Are you nervous?
Concerned, I asked this, to which Catherine looked at me with her eyes narrowed.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you really standing in for my mother? Wouldn't the person next to you be more competent?
Excuse me? I was taken aback by her unexpected words. As I wondered about her intention, Catherine slouched back, sneering. Like, is this interview even necessary?
My mom is a director, you know? I wasn't told I'd have to spend so much time on this.
I have plans later. Her attitude left me speechless. What was she talking about? Seeing me silent, Catherine burst out laughing.
Didn't you know? It's as if I'm already hired.
Unlike you, I'm competent. Please watch your language.
We are in the middle of an interview. I don't care what you think, but please answer our questions properly.
When I retorted irritably, Catherine closed her mouth in displeasure. I had high hopes knowing she was the director's daughter, but now I couldn't deny feeling disappointed. However, since she said she is joining the company, I tried to persuade her. But it seemed nothing got through to Catherine. She absent-mindedly fiddled with her nails, not even trying to make eye contact.
It's kind of funny how desperate you are. I do want a job, but I'm not exactly enthusiastic. I just need enough money to live. Even so, working comes with responsibilities, right? You understand that, having come for the interview? I heard this company has a good work-life balance. It is impossible for someone as incompetent as you to convince me. Do you get it?
Catherine's flippant attitude during the interview left me with an indescribable feeling. Indeed, many people in the company have a similar stance as her. But even they think proactively and act responsibly. I just wanted her to understand that, but Catherine dismissed it as something only enthusiastic employees do, arguing that it makes no difference in terms of evaluation, so it's pointless. I didn't want to work with someone like her. My colleague, perhaps feeling the same, shook their head in displeasure.
If you understand, can you hurry up and end the interview?
I know about you, you know. Catherine said this with a sly smile. I didn't understand what she meant, but for some reason, Catherine looked triumphant.
Mom said we don't need people like you in this company.
Catherine said this, crossing her arms and puffing out her chest. Hearing her words, I couldn't help but tense up and look at her. Catherine seemed self-assured, sneering at me with a side glance. Then she began to act arrogantly.
I could interview you if you want. I don't understand what you're saying.
Frustrated, I responded, and Catherine provoked me, saying if I'm not incompetent, I should be able to answer her questions.
Are you refusing because you can't answer?
Even when I disagreed, Catherine wouldn't listen. Since she persistently said I should be able to answer otherwise, I finally asked what she wanted to know. With a malicious smile, Catherine started prying into my educational background. What I did as a student, and whether I've made any achievements in the current company. When I answered honestly, she laughed it off and became even more arrogant. Eventually, she crossed her legs and laughed loudly, claiming that I would soon be her subordinate. When I asked what she meant, Catherine turned to me as if she were glad that I asked that question.
I am planning to take over Mom's position. I'm the director's daughter, and she said she'd bring me in. So it's like I'm being hired for her succession, right?
Huh?
Even if you join the company, you can't just become a director so easily. You have to learn the job first, right?
That'll be easy.
Mom acknowledges my ability. I'm sure I can learn the job in a year, right? Then, I will become a manager in the second year, and a director in the third year. I'm talented, so maybe I won't even need a full year to learn the job.
I was increasingly astounded. It was a natural reaction, considering she was missing the steps to become a manager. My colleague, too, looked dismayed and was no longer interested in conducting a proper interview. We should better be wrapping up this troublesome interview quickly. Then, we should report this to the director, suggesting she reconsider hiring her daughter.
I understood your career plan. However, I won't be your subordinate. Please revisit our company's website and check the career plans of your seniors. You'll realize your plan is unrealistic.
I said that, trying to end the interview. I never imagined I'd have to lecture someone like this during an interview. Suppressing a sigh, I sent Catherine a silent look, signaling her to leave. But Catherine, seemingly unsatisfied.
Why?
She asked.
There's nothing more to answer.
After I said that, Catherine stood up abruptly. The chair she had been sitting in toppled backward with a clatter. Ignoring that, Catherine approached me and leaned on the desk in front of me.
Why? Isn't it natural I'll be your boss? I ask you, why would I become your subordinate? Because you're the low-educated, incompetent employee Mom told me about.
I was stunned by her words. Catherine, looking down on me, talked about what her mother had said. I was astounded to hear the content of her story. After venting everything, Catherine left the interview room, seemingly satisfied. Left behind, I exchanged glances with my subordinate next to me, mentioning the need to verify the truth of her story with the director.
We need to discuss this in our interview report this evening.
In the evening, I approached the director, who had returned to our department looking a bit tired from a long meeting. The director, though tired, urged me to continue. I revealed the outrageous behavior of the director's daughter at the interview. The director, wide-eyed and deeply shocked, listened to my words.
My child behaved like that.
I know it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. Also, there was something else she mentioned that concerned me.
What is it?
With a tense face, I told the director everything Catherine had said. The director became even more confused, turning red with anger, and raised her voice. Hearing her, people around the floor started staring at us. Yet, I calmly affirmed the facts. Jacqueline, did you tell your daughter I'm a low-educated, incompetent employee? If that's true, I'll have to respond accordingly. Are you threatening me? No, not at all. I just have personal concerns and wanted to verify the facts. Hearing this, the director looked confused. I don't know what my daughter said, but do as you like. The director, seemingly unable to contain her anger, made a dismissing gesture with her hand. My perception of the director changed significantly that day. Later, the director called me in. I also had things to discuss after completing my fact-checking, so I responded to her call. The meeting was in a conference room. I opened the door and greeted as I entered. Inside, the director was waiting for me, pale and trembling. You've done something unnecessary, haven't you? What do you mean? Don't play dumb. The director approached me as I entered the room, glaring at me fiercely. Despite her menacing look, I started recording on my mobile phone in my pocket. The director was still pale, showing signs of distress. Yesterday, you talked about fact-checking, but what exactly did you verify and with whom? Because of you, I was called in by the vice presidents this morning, and... So, were you told to consider a department transfer and resign from your position? So, it was you. Confess what you did. Confronted with her accusations, I honestly explained my actions from the previous day. First, I had a direct conversation with the director. I thought I was the incompetent, low-educated employee her daughter mentioned at the interview, but as we talked, unfamiliar facts emerged. The employee who the director's daughter often heard about was someone the director always burdened with work, leading to almost daily overtime. I was shocked as I had no memory of such treatment, initially thinking the director's daughter was lying. However, seeing my colleague's stiffened face after hearing the story confirmed its veracity.
Actually, there's one person in the department who has a lot of overtime.
Really? Who is it?
Yes. I manage the overtime records on a computer, and I always thought something was odd.
I was unaware my colleague was doing this and was just impressed. My own overtime was within the regulations, so I wasn't the person mentioned in the story. But the revelation of who was doing the excessive overtime was a shock.
It's Isabel.
I was stunned. There was no indication of this, but I decided to confirm it with Isabel herself, accompanied by my colleague. Hearing our questions, Isabel initially tried to evade but eventually broke down, crying about the work dumped on her by the director and the difficulties she faced when left out of communication. I realized I didn't notice, or perhaps didn't want to notice. I should have been aware sooner. Isabel had been struggling alone all this time. Her lack of interaction was to avoid conflict with the director, who often caused trouble when she spoke with others. Angered by these underhanded tactics, I confronted the director directly, but she denied everything, which prompted me to take the next step. That night, I consulted with the CEO and chairman. Although I was only a manager, I was actually favored by the CEO and chairman, having been headhunted to this company. I was quite close to them, often invited to dinner meetings. I had a dinner appointment with the CEO and chairman, where I objectively discussed Isabel and the director's actions, expressing my concerns. The CEOs listened calmly and promised to investigate. But I couldn't wait. When I expressed concern to the chairman about his granddaughter, he questioned how I knew about Isabel, but admitted their relationship after I explained our recent closeness. The CEO, though not related to Isabel by blood, was the one who had invited her to the company. Taking responsibility, the CEO deeply reflected and offered some advice. which brought me here today. Jacqueline, did you really do such things to Isabel? When I asked this, the director, initially flustered, finally admitted her actions as I persisted. At first, I didn't. But then, thinking she might be the next CEO as a chairman's granddaughter, I panicked. Were you aiming for the CEO position, Jacqueline? Yes, is that so wrong? I've devoted myself to this company for that. I thought I finally became a director and next would be the CEO. I can't let her get in my way. Hearing the director's ambition, I was taken aback. But it seemed she had greatly erred in her methods. Furthermore, if she had truly achieved significant accomplishments, the CEO would have recognized her. The director seemed defiant. As she started to slander Isabel, I interrupted her unbearable words to continue. I understand your point, Jacqueline. You understand. So, this time. But you're wrong. You pushed Isabel too hard. Please take responsibility for that. As I firmly said this, the conference room door opened. There stood Isabel, flanked by the CEO and chairman. The director gasped at the sight. Are you trying to deceive me? No, I brought Isabel here because I wanted you to apologize to her. As I said this, the director clenched her back teeth in frustration and glared at me. If that's your intention, then I won't hold back anymore. Be prepared. The director, glaring, positioned herself in front of Isabel. She then turned her fierce gaze on Isabel and appealed to the CEO and chairman standing beside her. Please listen to me. You are being deceived. These two conspired to overthrow me. The director, with clenched fists and a stern face, made her accusation strongly. The CEO and chairman, displeased by the director's words, watched as she fabricated a story about how we pinned our mistakes on her. I didn't do such a thing. This all started when I investigated what your daughter said during the interview. You admitted it, didn't you? Please take the responsibility. No. I only admitted because I was forced into a corner. Where's the proof my daughter said those things? We have the interview recorded. I'll ask Nancy to bring it right now. Please wait a moment. I immediately called my colleague, who quickly brought the interview recording to the conference room. We projected the interview footage, the report, and Isabel's overtime data with the room's projector, showing them to the CEO and chairman. Still, the director didn't give up. She accused me of threatening her daughter during the interview to coerce damaging testimony, and claimed I manipulated Isabel's overtime data using my colleague. I was deceived. This woman has been carrying out a meticulous plan. I realized it too late. The director even began to fake cry poorly. Then she called Catherine, put it on speaker, and asked if I had threatened her during the interview. Catherine, maintaining her usual tone but becoming angry upon hearing my name, said the interview was terrible. My daughter says this. Do you still believe her? Are you saying I bullied and cornered Isabel? Just because she's your cute granddaughter, you're playing favorites? That's absurd. The chairman and others looked displeased at her words. I decided to present my final piece of evidence. I have an audio recording of you admitting what you did to Isabel. It's from our conversation before Isabel and the others arrived. Please give up and admit it. And apologize to Isabel. I played the audio of our earlier conversation from my mobile phone. Hearing her own words and realizing I had recorded the conversation, the director clenched her back teeth in frustration. This is a clear violation of compliance. The director had no further rebuttals. The CEO and chairman then informed her that a meeting would be held to discuss her future sanctions and advised her to prepare any counterarguments by then. Hearing this, the director slumped in her seat with a look of despair on her face. Subsequently, the director was stripped of her position. Her salary was reduced, and she was transferred to a small, regional department. It's unlikely she will ever return to a director's role, regardless of her future achievements. Naturally, Catherine's job offer was also revoked. Catherine, outraged that she was treated this way because of her mother, stormed into the company but was quickly restrained by security and taken away. According to a rumor, the director, who was already divorced, recently disowned her daughter and is now living alone in an apartment near her new department. I received thanks from Isabel. Furthermore, I was promoted from manager to director and am now working as the director of human resources. While I was genuinely happy about the promotion, I also regretted not realizing the situation sooner. Still, Isabel is strong. Since the director's departure, she seems to have regained her spirits over time. Seeing this brought me relief. I enjoy my work at this company. I hope that one day Isabel will come to feel the same way.